بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So we will jump into our class inshallah with the durood. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Sorry, a second. Okay, inshallah. So today we are supposed to be talking about Abbasid Caliphate that happened right after Umayyad Caliphate, and the Abbasid Caliphate is going to be we're going to be studying from 750 AD to 1258 AD. It's around 508 years. But we will see that even after that, some of the Abbasid Caliphate will still exist in North Africa and Egypt, but it was just symbolic. So inshallah, we will go into details. Uh, as you know, this is the family chart of Abdul Manaf, and we have already talked about the Umayyad Caliphate. This was all the entire Umayyad Caliphate that we studied about. And then today we are going to talk about the Abbasid Caliphate, which Hazrat Abbas was uncle of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then from his generation, from his descendants, we see that Abdullah bin Al-Saffah was from his descendant, and he was the one who claimed caliphate right after Umayyad Caliphate. And we also talked a little bit about how Umayyad Caliphate ended. So, and then we also last week we talked about the Spanish Caliphate, where Abdul Rahman, one of the descendants of Banu Umayyah, he ruled in Spain for 300 plus years, and then the Muslim rule continued for another 600 years there. So right after that, then we will see that the Abbasid Caliphate started. So we'll talk about the reasons for the demise of Umayyad dynasty. Then we'll talk about Abbasid Caliphate. Abu al-Saffah, he was the first ruler of Abbasid Caliphate. Then Jafar Al-Mansour will come, and then so on. So at this time, at 750 AD, we know that what was happening around the world. I kind of mentioned it last time, so I'll just review it. That in China, there was a Tang dynasty. In South Asia, there was a powerful regional kingdoms. Southeast Asia, Chinese influence in the area. Medieval Europe still trying to emerge, but no substantial growth. So this was the situation in the world when the Abbasid dynasty came into being. Okay, and I think I have also shared this chart with you. So we started talking about the Rashidun Caliphate, and then we have talked about Umayyad Caliphate for 89 years, and then we'll see the Abbasid Caliphate will exist for a long time, 508 years within the Syria and Iraq and all that, and then it continued in Cairo in Egypt for another hundreds of years so it ended in 1517. So we'll follow this chart, inshallah, for the rest of our class. Okay, so the reason for the demise of Umayyad Caliphate, the reason was that Umayyad dynasty had a stability in their times, but then slowly it started declining. And even though they made a huge progress in establishing institutions, systematic way of governance, and etc., but because they were Arabs and they were kind of pushing Arab culture, Arab language, and they were not including non-Arabs within their government. So, there was a rebellion. So Arabs and Arabic language was promoted during this era, and all the top level officials and elites were Arabs, and non-Arabs were discouraged. So this was one of the reasons people started rebelling from Iran, from the eastern side of the world, especially we will talk about one person who came from Iran to attack them. So rich became richer and poor became poorer in this era. And this was the system that was exactly against Islam. In Islam, the system promotes for poor people to grow, and then with the help of rich people, so that the gap is always becoming smaller and smaller, and that's why there is no corruption and things like that. But this was the era when all the evils were starting to rise. So people started comparing their time with the time of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba, and they saw a huge difference. So this was one of the reasons for rebellion. Now, Kharijites, if you remember, during the time of Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, there was a group who rebelled even against, who were even initially with Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, then they rebelled against him. So they were called Kharijites. So Khawarij still exist in this society, and they were radicals. They were like extremists. So they looked for an extreme thoughts and fueled it for their cause. So their standards were too high and hence was not practical. So they were holding everything too high, but it was not even according to Islam, because Islam promotes, for example, there's a hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says, "Khairul umur awsatha." In everything, there has to be a medium way, mediocre way of going forward, and that is what Islam teaches us. But these people were at very extreme. So Shias also kept in the background and did not challenge the Khulafa directly, but slowly that started, and they wanted to bring Ahl al-Bayt back. And you all know that how this Ahl al-Bayt concept was introduced, and then it was not really people like Khawarij and some of the extreme Shia people, they did not really convey the same message, and there was a misconception and misunderstanding, and then we live in today's world. So here was the situation. The Shias were the suppressed religious minority of Islam because Sunnis were ruling. The Persians were the suppressed ethnic minority of Islam. So Persians, like people in Iran and Central Asia, they were feeling that only Arabs are ruling and they're not giving us any chance in the government. And then at the same time, the Shias were feeling that they were suppressed as a religious minority. So there was a natural space in which these two group of people got together. The Shias were against all previous religious establishments, and the Persians were against the Arab political establishment. So, you know, like they say, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. So something like that, this was happening. So they both worked with each other to obtain what they desired, and they mingled with each other, and rebellion started. So they basically said, okay, Ahl al-Bayt needs to have the government. So Shia, of course, feels that they are the descendants of Ali and Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. And then Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu's family also felt that because he was uncle of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abbas, so his descendants are also Ahl Bayt. So this is how they got together. And then more rebellion started happening in the east, since more non-Arabs were living in those areas. Okay, so as you can see, the Abbasid Caliphate started right at 750. Now, here are some of the names. You don't have to remember these names, but these are the names of the Abbasid caliphs. So you have Abu Abbas al-Fatah, and then of course his son Mansur, Mahdi, Hadi, and Harun Rashid. And we will study all that. And these are the names of the rest of the Khulafa. So again, you should just know that how many of them came, but essentially you do not need to remember all these names. Now, in short, so Abbas radiallahu ta'ala's son was Abdullah, his son was Ali, and then his son was Muhammad, and of course then you have Ibrahim, Abu Abbas, and then Mansur. These were the three sons of Muhammad. So Abu Abbas Abdullah al-Fatah, he was the one who took charge, and he became caliph. Then we will see that his brother Mansur became caliph after him, and then Mahdi had two sons, Harun Rashid and Hadi, and then they were the ones who took the government. But then the Harun Rashid's time, we will see, and then his son Mamun Rashid time was the golden era of Muslim empire, which existed during Abbasid Caliphate. So just back of your mind, just remember this chart. Okay, and then of course in Cairo, when the original caliphate ended, then symbolically Abbasid Caliphate still existed in Egypt, and these are the names of those, but those caliphs, but they were just symbolic caliphs. They had nothing to do with the government, so they were just preaching, and they were basically taking care of the religious affairs. But as far as the government and militarily and all those sort of things were taken care of Mamluks. This was another nation that was ruling in that area. Okay, so inshallah, because we don't have very many people today, we will try to review this or refresh our memories in our next class. But just to start on the Abbasid Caliphate, so that you know, the Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, he was the youngest uncle of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was born in 568 and died in 653. Abbasids started chanting slogan of Ahl al-Bayt deserve the right of caliphate. Now, like I said, so they were against Arabs, but at the same time, I mean, they were Abbasid actual caliphs were also Arab, but they got support from Shias and also from non-Arabs who lived in Iran and the Persian and the Persia. So they started chanting that Ahl al-Bayt deserves the right of caliphate, and this is why we are all fighting for it. But it is very interesting that son of Abbas were not only Ahl al-Bayt, but it helped them get Shias on their side. So this was the situation. There was someone who was mastermind of this plot. His name was Abu Muslim Khurasani. He died in 755 AD. Abu Muslim Khurasani was a great plotter, very intelligent, expert in maneuvering political schemes and all that. And he lived in Iran in the area of Merv. So the last Umayyad Caliph, Marwan, killed the leader of Abbasid movement at the time. His name was Ibrahim. So then his younger brother, Abu Abbas, took charge of the movement. The main war of Zab, I think we talked a little bit about Zab, but I will also show you the map. But there was a war between Umayyad, last Caliph of Umayyad, and then the Muslim Khurasani and the people of Abbasid Caliphate. So the main war of Zab was fought between the last Umayyad Caliph and Abbasid at Zab River in 750 AD. This was the last war after which the Umayyad Caliphate had completely gone down in that area. Umayyad Caliphate got defeated and ran away towards Egypt. He was followed by Abbasids and was killed in Egypt. So the last known caliph of the Umayyad Empire was killed. But then we will also talk about Abu Muslim Khurasani, who basically became the main reason of the power. And he was very intelligent. He was, politically aware, and so he was the Abbasid governor in Iran for 7 years. So in 120 after Hijrah, just 120 years after Prophet ﷺ's made migration to Medina, Abu Muslim Khurasani appeared in the city of Merv. Today it is city in Turkmenistan, but at that time it was part of Iran, Persians. So Khurasan is basically, as you all know, Khurasan, the name that was used at that time is, so in Khurasan, we are part of Iran, current part of Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and most of Afghanistan. So this area was called Khurasan at that time. Muslim Khurasani recruited people from Khurasan and trained them to fight and inculcated the Hashemite doctrine in them. So now he's encouraging people against Umayyad Caliphate and basically saying that we have to take our caliphate back from them. They all used black clothes, black flag, and even black swords colored, unlike Umayyads, whose flag was white. So the Umayyad was using white flag, and these Khurasani people, or basically who were against them, Abbasid Caliphate, were using black. In Persia, white color was regarded as color of mourning and death. So it was the opposite. As we can see, most people nowadays, the color black is color of mourning, and white is like, the bride and groom, they use white color for occasions of happiness. But anyway, this was the opposite way there. So this is Khurasan. If you can see that part of Turkmenistan, Iran, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. So this was the shaded area that you can see is Khurasan. Okay, so Battle of Zab. Well, how did it happen? So Muslim Khurasani came from Merv, and then he basically came and attacked Iraq, or where the caliphate was. And he got on his way. He got a lot of people. He encouraged them to fight against those people who are against the Ahl al-Bayt, and he was able to bring them. So as you can see, this is Murv. So he got a lot of people from Khorasan, from this area. His army started getting heavier and heavier. As you can see, local Persian forces joined him, and then Umayyad army was basically here, and they came to fight, and then they ran away. And this is where the clash was. There's a river called Zab, and that's where the clash happened. So this is Umayyad's army, and this is Abu Muslim Khurasani's army. But along his way, he was able to make many of those people with him. So let's talk about Abu al-Abbas al-Saffah. His even his name was like, he's a killer, he's a someone who would like bloodthirsty. So Abu Abbas al-Saffah, basically Saffah means bloodthirsty, ruled as a caliph between 750 and 754. So he ruled for 4 years. He was in Kufa when he was declared caliph. At this point, Shias realized that they got used by Abbasids and the caliphate was not going to be continued in Ahl al-Bayt, because all these Shias and other people were supporting Abbasids, because they thought that they would fight with us and they would ask us to be a caliph, but this did not happen. Right after the Battle of Zab, al-Saffah sent his armies towards China to stop Tang dynasty in China. So just imagine that how much they were thinking. But of course, later they both compromised with each other because they both had some issues going on. So they said that it's better that we do not fight. So he brought his armies back. But later they both compromised with each other, and Abbasid decided to strengthen their existing territories rather than expanding. So then Abbasid said, okay, let's strengthen our own areas before we attack other areas. Abu al-Saffah started his vengeance against Umayyads and started killing everyone in their family, living or dead, meaning they even dug the graves of Umayyad's caliphs and Umayyad's leaders, and they mutilated bodies, and they just basically it was a huge chaos in there. And if they found any blood relatives or anyone who belonged to caliphate and their descendants, they pretty much killed everyone in cold blood. He dug even the graves of Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu and other Umayyads who had died, and pulled their body parts apart and burned them all. This was the situation, and this is very sad part of our history, but it happened because many narrators and pretty much all the historians agree that this is something that really happened. All those who were left were invited to a dinner by him. So what he did is he said, okay, some people may be hiding in their houses. So he said, okay, I've done what I've done, and now let's get together and we will talk about that how we can work together. So many of the prince or princess who were in hiding, they got tricked by Abbas, the Safa, and they went to the party. They thought that the bad time is over and now we can make compromise and we can work together. So all those who were left, he invited to a party, saying that he wanted to forgive them and live in peace. But as soon as everyone arrived, he had every single person assassinated. So he had the doors shut, and people even go to an extent and say that those tables or those food that was in front of these guests, actually underneath them there were people of Safah's army, and they basically, as soon as the doors got shut, they came out of it and they started assassinating everyone. So they killed every single person they found. And if you remember, when we talked about the Caliphate in Andalusia or the Spain, I mentioned that there was only one prince, Abdurrahman, who was left somehow, and he left with a younger brother, and then his younger brother was also killed by Abbasids, and Abdurrahman was able to cross the Strait of Gibraltar through North Africa, and then he went to Spain. And because Umayyad rulers were still there, or people who were under the emirate of Umayyad, or under the caliphate of Umayyad, they respected him, they gave him space, and he became caliph of Spain. So this is what we studied last time. Now, once they assassinated everyone, their feast continued during assassination while people were crying, mourning, and dying. And some of these things are just not understandable. That how and what kind of vengeance he had, that he did this extreme action. Only one young lad of Umayyad somehow got away and sailed to Spain. As I mentioned, his name was Abdul Rahman. There he founded the Emirate of Cordoba in 756 AD, and then we studied that. His era is called the Caliphate of Umayyad continuation in Spain. Okay, so uh, Abu Saffah had to face many rebellions from governors and leaders of Umayyad Caliphate, but slowly he defeated them all and killed most of them. Abu Saffah died in few years, and his younger brother Jafar, who was known as Al-Mansur, Jafar Al-Mansur, and he ruled for 21 years. And this is where we'll see that the Abbasid Caliphate actually started growing, and we see some major improvements, the major scientific and in religiously in all aspects. Baghdad started actually Iraq started growing, and then we'll see that Abu Ja'far Abdul Mansur was the one who actually created Baghdad. He was the one who founded the city, and then because he ruled about 21 to 22 years. Al-Mansur created a new city near Tigris, so this is by the river of Tigris, and he named it Baghdad. And today what we know as Baghdad is what was established and created by Jafar al-Mansur, the Abbasid Caliphate. And then he moved his capital in this city. So the Baghdad became the capital. He did a detailed survey of the area and made sure that this place was best in all aspects for trade, defense, geographical location, and other official businesses. He found this place to be the best. He called best architects and designers from Basra and other places. He also ordered doors and other construction material from existing buildings in different cities. Somehow he had an idea of all these, and he had a niche for all these, to grow that city. So he started working on it. He concentrated, and he spent almost 20 years to make sure that Baghdad becomes one of the top cities, one of the leading cities, metropolitan city of the world at that time. So he also called religious scholars, judges, numerology experts, and other professionals to help in establishing the city. So not only that, he constructed the city, and I think I'll show you a map there, that how it was completely round, and the way he designed it, it was very helpful for the people who lived there. But not only those architects, but he also asked religious scholars and judges, and so that he can establish the entire society. Imam Abu Hanifa was also among them. Since Imam Abu Hanifa declined his offer to hold a position, he offered Imam Abu Hanifa, rahmatullah alayh, to be the chief justice of the court in Baghdad. But Imam Abu Hanifa refused. And because he refused, he made him work in the construction of the city like a regular laborer and slave, and then arrested him and put him in jail and tortured him. So this is all happening right there, right within 300 years, 200 years of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam demise. So this is where Muslim society and community is going. But on the other hand, they are making huge progress as far as the scientific culture, or even religiously. Many scholars are doing research, and we will see that during Harun Rashid's time, Iraq will become, or the Baghdad will become, they would create a house of wisdom. They would create a house of wisdom, and they will make sure that everything is done according to what he was planned. So Mansur sent his forces to do away with his fitna and took him down successfully. He also dealt with Khawarij during his time. And Mahdi, he nominated Mahdi as his crown prince. So again, this is all happening during Mansur's time. Just like other rulers so far, Al-Mansur continues his atrocities, and this time on descendants of Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So even though he got hold of the government by having support from descendants of Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, but now he's turning against them. So it was a really he committed a fraud against all the other people who helped him. He thought they were plotting against him. He was a very person who would feel like everything was in doubt, so he started killing them. He killed many of them and dumped their bodies in Tigris River. He himself died in 158 Hijri while he was going for Hajj. He had created a long will for his son, advising him of good things, but kept repeating that and I know you will not do that. He knew his son was not capable of doing this, but he still wanted to teach him and train him. But he still nominated him as a crown prince. But in his mind, he knew what was going to happen. Now, Abu Muslim Khurasani, who really helped him get the throne or get the caliphate, Al-Mansur got suspicious of him and also killed Abu Muslim Khurasani. Since he had become very popular and powerful, then his body was also dumped in the river. He was a great and a strong diplomat and was the true founder of Abbasid dynasty, of course, because the rest of the Abbasid dynasty for hundreds of years, we will see that how they kept growing for a long time. His rule saw many rebellions from all around, including Khorasan, Syria, Iraq, Kufa, Egypt, and other places, and he crushed them all. He assassinated anyone who raised his head and gave severe punishment to others. So, inshallah, we will end here today at Abu Jafar al-Mansur's time. And then next time we will start talking about al-Mahdi, Muhammad bin Abdullah Mahdi, and who would rule for 11 years. And then we'll see that Abu Musa al-Hadi, he would rule for 1 year. And then we will continue studying, inshallah, next time with Harun Rashid. So today we stopped at the Jafar al-Mansur, inshallah, and then we'll see if you have any questions, and then we'll go from there. So for now, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.